Fear is a nonpartisan organization. It doesn't support or oppose candidates or political parties. The League of Women Voters is an organization fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and in practice. And if you want to learn more about our policies and our organization, please visit our website. The League of Women Voters of the Lower Cape Fear also recognizes the tribal lands of the Waccamaw Siouan and Indigenous people of the Lower Cape Fear. No. This is still. Okay, so one thing we just want to recap is that we were part of a Trusted Election Town Hall traveling tour that was put on by the Carter Center in 4 states in the United States this year in preparation for the midterms. The one in Wilmington was held on Monday, October 3rd. We had a good turnout. For people who don't know about it, what happened was we had members of the New Hanover County and the Brunswick County Board of Elections present to answer questions from the audience and also to share exactly how the procedures work, the voting and election procedures, so that we could kind of combat some disinformation or just general confusion that might be out there about what makes our elections secure. We do have a virtual recording available on our website of the entire town hall. And also we have a clip at the end of this presentation today that we thought was a very good tip that came out of the discussion on how to make sure your vote really counts. Other things that we wanted you to be aware of, we are in the midst of a lot of preparations for the November 8th elections. And so on Saturday, October 29th, we actually have voter and election information tables at 2 locations. One is a fall festival that's in Williston, and another at Williston Middle School, and also at Belleville. There's a fall festival. We'll be attending that as well. We're going to have candidate interviews available on our YouTube channel. So if you want to look to see if a candidate that you're interested in has been interviewed by us and we have a recording of that interview, you can look for that as well. And then just to let you know that people on the voter services team are involved right now, both in all counties, Pender, New Hanover, and Brunswick. The process has begun for validating absentee ballots. And that happens at the boards of election. It'll happen periodically up through voting day. And we now have started to participate in the monitoring of that process. And if anyone is interested, you can let us know, and there's room for you to participate in that as well. Okay, so many of you participating today probably have used VOTE411 for your own purposes in the past, but there might be some people who have not. And so what we'd like to do is show you the many capabilities of VOTE411, partly for your own benefit, but also for those occasions where you might run across someone who has questions about voting or needs, and you will be able to more knowledgeably point them to vote411.org so that they can get their questions answered. This first part here is just a short video that we're going to show that kind of summarizes what VOTE411 can do in like under 60 seconds.
Did you know that voting is a superpower? Voting is one way to make your voice heard. Do you have any questions about this superpower? Want to get ready? VOTE411 has you covered. VOTE411 provides nonpartisan information to help voters exercise their power and make their voices heard. Do you want to check your voter registration? Register to vote? Find out what's on your ballot? You can find all of this and more at VOTE411. Because of redistricting, North Carolina district lines have changed again. Find your federal, state, and local voting districts at VOTE411. Before every election, be sure to make your voting plan. Get all the information you need to exercise your voting superpower at vote411.org. This informational video is provided by the League of Women Voters of Catawba Valley with the support of the Southern Leadership for Voter Engagement and produced with the assistance of West. Did you know that voting?
Okay, so I'm going to actually get into the VOTE411 website now. And when I pull this up, one of the things that I want to make really clear is that this is not a website that's just designed for people in this region or even North Carolina. This is a tool that voters throughout the United States can use. And you can tell that in part because when you scroll down on this website, you can see there's a map of the entire United States. So it's a tool that is available to every voter in the United States. Before I also start to drill down into some of the details, I'm also going to point out that up here you can see that the entire page can be translated into Spanish. And when I click on this, we start to see that everything is translated. And what I also want you to know is that this translation occurs now for every subsequent page. So if someone is more familiar with Spanish as their language and they want to proceed that way, every subsequent page that they click on will also be translated into Spanish. Okay, we're going to take this back to English because Spanish is not mine, my native language. So one of the things, if you've used VOTE411 before, that you might have noticed or been confused about, but is actually on purpose, is that you can find the information you're looking for a number of ways. It may appear even redundant to you, but it actually helps. So an example of this would be, I can see that here, if I click in this box, register to vote, it's going to take me to a page where I start to complete information on how to begin my voter registration. And that's one way that someone would move to this section if that's what they wanted to do. But at the same time, if I go back to the main page again, you can see there's this menu here. And when I click on that, again, I get to see information on let's start over. That's the PowerPoint. It's not, it's that one, I think. Yep. That's okay. Start over. Is that what's on now? Yes. Okay, sorry that was not well understood. So I'll go back. This is the main screen for VOTE411, and you can see that it's in Spanish right now. And that's because previously I had clicked up here where you can choose a language. I'm going to switch it back to English again now. But as I said before, if you translate this into Spanish at this point, every subsequent page will also be in Spanish. So the person doesn't have to keep changing it into Spanish to read what it says. Here is a place where I can click if I'm interested in registering to vote. I can click here, and it takes me to a page where I start to fill in information to register to vote. But I also can go under menu. And when I click on menu, I have a number of options here, one of which is register to vote. And if I click this again, it's going to take me to the exact same page. And this is where for some people, it seems very redundant that you can find these different ways. But it's been shown that people approach a website in many different ways. Some are much more visual and they'll look for things like boxes. And other people just want to go right to the menu and scroll down and find what they're looking for. So there are a number of ways for you to find the information that you're looking for. These redundancies are intentional. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the home page and also just show a couple more things that are available to people. Let's say that you are registered to vote and you want to just get some information. Maybe you just moved to North Carolina. And so one of the ways that you can start to get information is to look at nationwide voting rules, a quick view. This can especially be helpful to someone who came from a different state and is looking for things that used to be true for them and are not true anymore. Because as you start to look at this screen, you'll see that across the top are a number of voting options. And down the side are the 50 states of the United States. And if you see an X, that means that that's not available. That voting service is not available in that state. So if we look at Alabama, you can't register to vote on election day in Alabama, but there is online registration, and that's shown by like a green check. If we just look at Alabama and Alaska, because they're at the top here, you can quickly scan through and see that, yeah, it's true. Different states have different options. And if you moved from one state to another, you might be missing something that you were used to before. The other thing that you might see here is that there's these little flags in some of the boxes. And for instance, there's this flag. When I hover over it, it gives me just a little piece of information. And in this case, it tells us that in Alaska, ranked choice voting is available, but the hover box tells us that the first time they're going to use it is in fact this midterm election on November 8th. And so if you hover over some of these boxes that have the flags, it'll just give you a little bit more information without having to go through lots and lots of detail. Now I'm just going to scroll down to North Carolina. Okay, so here's North Carolina highlighted. And we can see here that, actually, yeah, okay. We can see here that I'm going to look at absentee voting. Okay, so absentee voting, I can see that in North Carolina, there's no excuse absentee voting. So when I click on that, because I want to understand what does that really mean, and it tells me now all the information that I need to know about absentee ballot voting in North Carolina. Notice on the left side here, there's tons of information, right? You can find out about drop boxes. You can find about early voting and election dates. And all of this is specific to North Carolina. This is an important one for me personally, because when I first moved to North Carolina, I came from New York. And so if we click back to this chart, you can see that in New York, there is absentee voting, but it's called absentee voting with excuse. And what that means is in New York, you have to have a reason, and it has to be one of 4 reasons that are allowed for you to get an absentee ballot and proceed with your vote. But in North Carolina, it's different. You can proceed without an excuse. Any one of us can get an absentee ballot as long as we follow the right procedures. So you can see that this just kind of gives you a summary of the kinds of information that's available. And it probably is most helpful for someone who's comparing state to state or wants to see all the options quickly right in front of them. Okay, so I'm going to go back now. This same information is also available if I want to just click on the state, North Carolina. The top of the page is showing me the basic information. It tells me that the next general election is November 8th. It tells me online I have to register by October 14th, and postmark October 14th, and in person November 5th. But if we scroll down, we end up at the same place that we were before. This is another way that you can get, again, all the kind of options that are available in North Carolina and what the restrictions might be. Okay, so now we're going to go and we're going to register to vote. So I'm going to go to the top of the page, and I'm the kind of person that likes to click on a box. So I'm going to click on this box. And I'm going to start the process of registering to vote. Notice again that if I want to, I can translate the whole page into Spanish. Another interesting thing is for the actual voter registration process, a number of other languages are also available. I don't even know what all these languages are. I know that Japanese, Korean, and Chinese are on here, Vietnamese, Cyrillic. And so if I click on those, like I'll click on this one. And you can see that it translates into that language. And again, all subsequent pages to complete the form will also be translated into that language. Let's go back to English. And again, before I continue, also, if you have decided, no, I just want to print a form. I don't want to continue doing this online. I want to print out a form and I want to fill it out with my hand. You can see that there's also a number of languages that are available where the form, it's the same form, but it'll be translated into these language. So language should not be an issue for someone to be able to register to vote. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to fill in my email address and my zip code. And the email address, you'll see later, the only reason this is captured is because if I get to a certain point in the process and the system and I both realize I cannot continue to register online, then a pre-printed form will be made available to me and emailed to me so that every question I've answered so far will be captured in the form. And I just need to print it out and then either bring it or mail it to the Board of Elections. And I'll show you what that looks like when we get there. Okay, so now I'm going to click to the next step. And now you can see I need to fill in some basic information. So I'm just going to do this for myself. And because I practiced, this information is kind of already filled in here. Notice that if you're filling it in and you don't click that you're a US citizen, it'll tell you right now, then don't proceed. You have to be a US citizen to be able to register to vote. So I click that and I continue to go down. And now this is the big determiner, this next step. If you have a North Carolina state issued identification card or a driver's license, you can continue and you will be able to register to vote online. If you don't, which I'm going to show you what this looks like in a minute, then you would click here and you're not going to be able to complete your registration online, but you will be able to fill out a form and get some instructions about how to continue. Okay, so I'm going to do the one for right now. I do have a driver's license. And so I fill in the rest of the information here. You have an option to receive emails to the League of Women Voters. I'm going to unclick that because I personally receive plenty of emails from the League of Women Voters. So I don't need to get any more. You can tell us any issues that you're concerned about. And if you'd like to become a volunteer, we'll take that too. Okay, and then notice now that's the end of this part, and I'm going to click next step. Okay, just has to scroll up here to the top. Okay, so this is where now, because I have my driver's license and because you can register to vote at the DMV, that's the easiest way to do it, is when you get your driver's license. If you're standing there, you actually can complete voter registration then. If you have your ID ready, now what's going to happen is this: when I click this box here to finish my voter registration online, it's going to take me to the DMV website. So I have to have my driver's license ready. And when I click, now it's moving me over to the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles website, which is right here. And you can see that there's lots of things that you would expect to be on the DMV website, like your vehicle registration. But down here, third from the bottom, is submit voter registration application. All the information that I completed on VOTE411 has transferred over here. I'm not going to click on this because I don't want to get too far into it, but it'll be there and I can just finish it up and submit it. And we'll get acknowledgement that I have been registered to vote. Okay, so I'm going to go back here now and we're going to look at, well, what happens if you don't have that? So I'm just clicking backwards. So here we are. I have my name, my address, and now I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say, no, I don't have a state ID. I don't have a driver's license. And you may have noticed that a number of things pop up right away. Okay. Let me click off of it for a minute. So you can see it looks like that. And now when I click this, new options are available. If I scroll up, I can see one option is I've changed my name. Maybe the part of the reason that my driver's license is not valid anymore is that I have a different name now. And so I would click here and I would enter in my previous name. That's going to facilitate the registration process. It could be that I get my mail at a different address from the one above. This, I think, applies to if you have a PO box or if you're a student who is registering to vote and you entered your home address, but you get your mail at college. And so if you click there, now you can enter the information where you get your mail. And then lastly, it could be that you've changed your address since the last time you registered to vote in North Carolina. And so again, your driver's license or your state ID are not necessarily valid. And this is a place where you can click on that and you can show your previous address. And you may be in the voter rolls historically because you voted under a different address. And now you have to change that. Okay, so then the next thing I would do is I would fill in whatever information I need to. And it says you need to fill in some kind of ID number. If you have your social security number, the last 4 digits, you can put that in there. Or if you don't have that, you can just say none. So I'm going to say none. I have an opportunity to fill in race, and I'm just going to say decline to state. And you can choose a party, and I'll say unaffiliated. You put in your date of birth and your phone number. And now notice down here at the bottom, it no longer says next step, it says prepare form. And the reason for that is that you're not going to be able to finish online. You are going to have to get to the point where you're going to print a form off and then finish that by hand and either mail it or take it to the local board of elections. So I'm going to prepare the form. Okay, I have to scroll up and you can see that right now it's preparing. So now it reminds me that I am not registered, right? I need to print this and sign it and mail in my form for me to be able to be registered to vote. And it says if you don't have access to a printer right now, it's fine because we already emailed your form to you. So if I got out and looked in my email in my inbox, I would have this form ready to open up in a mail and to print it out, okay? So I'm going to show you what this looks like. So if I say print your registration form now, Okay, so here you can see that, here you can see this is the first page that comes out, and it's very clear that you're not registered yet. You have to sign, stamp, and mail this. One of the reasons that I had to input my zip code at the very beginning of this was that the system was able to look up and see that New Hanover County Board of Elections is my local Board of Elections, and it gives me the address here so that whether I bring the form or I mail the form, I know where it needs to go. It reminds me of the deadline for mail-in registration, and it gives me a website to click to read very specific instructions that are true about registering to vote in North Carolina. There are also some special instructions here for people who might be first-time voters, that what they need to follow. And then you can see what comes up next is the actual form. And it may be small for you, but underneath all the information that I already submitted is in there. So my name, my address, my birth date, it will record my race if I had entered that and my choice of party. And a nice big box here where I would need to sign and date it. If there was any of those special cases applied to me, like I did have a previous name or I did have a previous address, that would be captured here as well. And now at the bottom, it says, now you need to mail this, right? Or bring it. And so you can see the other thing they have here is they've kind of set it up so that when you print it off, you can fold it and put a stamp on it and staple it. And it already has the address on here where you would mail it to the Board of Elections by the date that you need to. So pretty thorough and pretty easy to understand, and walks you through it. Okay, so at this point, that's how the website helps someone to register to vote. I'm gonna let Barb Burrell, who is our Director of Voter Services, come up, and she's gonna walk through the next section. And I'll just let you know if you have any questions that you would like me to answer or any of the other presenters, then you can put them in the chat or save them for the Q&A at the end. And then it's on. I don't need to. Okay, you're good.
Okay, most of you who are listening today and watching are probably league members. And so you might think, well, this is very basic information. But remember, one of our jobs as members of the League of Women Voters is to educate other people. So if your neighbors, come to you and say, oh, I haven't registered to vote, you know to go to VOTE411 and show them exactly what to do for that. So that's what's really very important here. Okay, so we're going to move to verify voter registration. Okay, now, why would you be concerned with verifying your registration? Well, you know you're registered to vote. Well, maybe, but it's really important to think about the process and to go back and make sure that you have actually verified your registration, that you haven't moved or done something that's going to throw you off polls. So most of us just go to the polls or submit an absentee ballot without thinking of checking things out first. Okay, so what I want to do here first is to give you a quote from Sarah Laverne, who's the director of the Board of Elections in Brunswick County, and she was at one of the speakers at the trusted event the other night. So this is what Sarah said. She was asked, at the end of the presentation, the moderator asked, what is the one thing you want voters to know before they vote? And what she said was, I wish every voter would check their ballot.
No, not from Sarah.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. She said, I wish every voter would check their ballot. Make sure they are on the books. Make sure they are at the right address. Make sure they do not have to update something. If they vote on election day when they go to vote, they may not be registered. They may not be in the right county. So everyone should check their registration before they vote. This is a quote from Sarah Laverne, the director of the Board of Elections in Brunswick County. So we should follow her advice. Make sure you check that you are registered to vote. So I can't ask the people here how many to put up their hands and say, yeah, I just checked. Okay, but you can check all of these factors in the verifying your voter registration on VOTE411. Okay, so what you do first, if I'm doing this right, it will go to North Carolina. Okay, I'm going to just quickly, I should have done this earlier, but I didn't. So I'm just going to type in my name. Oh, there I am. Okay, I'm right there already. Great. And you don't have to put in your year of birth. You can put in your county, which helps. So I'm in Brunswick County. Okay. And we can search. Well, it says right down there, see at the bottom, it says, I am indeed registered to vote. Okay, next, it's going to give me more information. So about your jurisdiction, if I check on my name, okay, then I get all kinds of information. So if you want to know something about your history, or you want to know more about that you're an active voter, you can see if they've got your race correct, your party identification, whether you're male or female. They don't have the other gender features in there, but you can check all that, make sure all of that is correct. Then your jurisdiction, so where do you vote? So I vote in Southport 2. That's my precinct. And here are all the races that I will be voting for. So in Brunswick County, for example, most everybody will be voting for the state representative in District 17. But in Southport and Oak Island, we're voting in District 19. So there's that one little difference, but you want to know beforehand what you can do. You can find out where your voting location is, so you'll know where to vote. There's lots of people that comes election day, and they get mixed up with the early voting places. Like in Southport, an early voting site is there, one of the 5 in the senior center. So people will go to the senior center, which is fine for one of our precincts, but not for the precinct I live in. So that's why this is really good information for everybody. Then you get your sample ballot. You can look at your sample ballot here. Okay, one little tidbit I'd like to tell you about. If you look there for the US Senate, and you see, well, gee, why is the Green Party candidate listed first? And then the Democratic Party candidate, Jerry Beasley, and the Libertarian candidate, and Ted Budd, the Republican candidate, is last. Okay, if you go down then to US Representatives in District 7, you'll see that Charles Graham is first and David Rouser is second. How come? It goes back and forth for the parties and all. It's because the state has this algorithm, I guess is what I would call it. And they choose one letter from the alphabet. So if they come up, if they, pick G, just automatically. So any candidate whose last name begins with a G, they go to the top of the ballot for each race separately. Okay, so GA, anyone with GA would be first, then GR. And then it goes down through the alphabet and then back up to the A, B, C's, D's, etc. So it's just a little tidbit. Sarah Laverne gets really excited about telling people that. So I've learned it really well. So if you're ever wondering, why it's that way, that's the way it is. Okay, let me see. How do I get to the next slide? Sorry. You want to get off here? Do you want to leave the ballot? No, well, I want to get out of here and go.
You want to be there?
Let's see. We went through sample ballot. Okay, so we're done. If you go down 2/3 of the way down, your absentee ballot by mail or early voting. So you get information about if you've done an absentee ballot, you can follow what happens with your absentee ballot. There's something called ballot.track. If you go to the State Board of Elections, you can click on that website and you can see what's happening with your absentee ballot. Was it approved? In terms of having the right witnesses and address. They don't look at how you voted or anything, but just to make sure you've completed all of that. So you can do that. And it also tells you whether you returned it in person. And also, I don't know if you can see right here that it's been accepted for this one in particular, whether it's in person or it's been accepted. And then you can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm relaxed. Okay. Okay, then next, here is your voting history. This is my voting history. So you can see that I've been a very good voter. Ever since I came here in 2009, 2010, I voted in all but one local election when I didn't know anybody who was running. Okay, now I go. Where do I go back? Yep, yep. I think,
If you close that X right there, is this where you want to be?
yes, I'm just about all done. Okay, going through that and encouraging you to verify your registration. And just one little thing to remember, that a person who's not registered to vote, but has been a resident of your precinct or your area for 30 days before the November election, okay, you can register and vote at the early voting sites. I'm not sure that we really emphasize that if you have a neighbor who, you know, all of a sudden, oh, I didn't register, I haven't registered to vote yet, and it's past the 30 days before the election, if they go and vote at the early voting sites, they can also register to vote at that same time. Okay, thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Marilyn Pretty to tell you about candidates and all that we do. Oh, that would help. If you don't mind.
No.
Just help.
Please. I'm not ready to go there yet. Stay on the screen again. All right, thank you, Leslie and Barbara, for sharing these items on our menu. And it's getting toward lunchtime, so I'm going to keep talking about menus and even talk about the kitchen, just because I feel a little hungry here. So one of the main menu items that most of you probably have seen is our candidate response section. So let's see if we can find that here. So we're going to go, let's see, check your voter registration. We're going to go back to, is that the back arrow there? Yeah, it's covered up.
Yep.
Go back. Okay. All right. So we're going to go back to the screen here. And since Leslie's got her address in here.
I don't think I do have it in here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you do. And it's very simple. You just put in your address. This screen pops up and it says, go to my races. Before we go to the races though, there's this little sentence down here that's really important. It says, have all your candidates answered our questions? If not, see how you can help. So there's a link there that we're going to go mention this again. Because when we go to our races, you're going to see that we don't have all the responses we would like. So this is going to be on Leslie's ballot because we used her address, right? So we've got the Senate race at the top, just like it would be on her ballot. So we can click make your selection. Now, we can click the first one here is Sherry, and we can compare her to, let's say we compare her to the Libertarian candidate. Hit compare. Let's scroll down so you can see it. So what we've got is we've got Sherry's responses to our questions, what her position, philosophy statement is, her current occupation, she even put her age in. Our Libertarian candidate, he chose to put his picture in, but he didn't answer the questions. So let's go back. Let's see if we get any more luck with somebody else here. So we're going to go back. Let's compare to Mr. Budd. Mr. Budd, who he didn't answer the questions, right? You can see the questions. Candidate has not responded. So our Green candidate, Green Party candidate, he did. So now we can compare Sherry and Mr. Ho. All right, now, hopefully you'd be able to do that for every race. You'd be able to look at how they answer the questions, but it depends on whether the candidate answers our invitation or not. So the other thing we can do is, let's go back here, go to the races here. We want to get back out of you go back to nope, don't go backwards. I want to, I'm sorry. I just want to
It's
go
'cause
back to the
2 is in your way.
the two's in the way, yeah.
There you go.
Okay, and okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. It takes a team to do this, right? So the other thing I found while exploring this is, okay, we've got all these, we've got judges to vote for, district attorney, commissioners, board of education, clerk, sheriffs, and then we have these New Hanover Soil and Water Conservation District supervisors. So, okay, like who are these people? What do they do? So one feature of this is that there's a job description, which is, wow, that's really cool. So now you know what these people do. And did they answer the questions? Well, out of our 3 counties, Pender, New Hanover, and Brunswick, only one of the 6 candidates or 7 candidates answered the questions. But you can click and see how he answered them. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on this because what I really want to do is give you, go back to the main one. Okay. All right. Yeah, there's
You don't need any of this anymore.
not for now.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're going to share, new share. And then we're going to go here. Okay. So that worked. And thank you for Joanne's help. Thank you. Now we're behind the kitchen doors. We went through the swinging doors into a restricted area where the restaurant patrons, the people that look in the menu, don't usually get to go. But this is the admin site for VOTE411. And this is what I use to send out the invitations. So I thought it'd be sort of interesting for you to see it because I can't take credit for putting any of this together. This was at the US level, the state US level, and the state, the North Carolina League. These people are experts. They did a huge amount of work. You can see there's a category called districts. They had to change this. Every time they change a boundary, this changes, even at a precinct level. And they get the GIS maps. I mean, it's very complex. All I'm doing is I'm going to show you the candidate section, which is, so what we're going to do is we're going to put them in order here, make it a little easier. And then we're going to go all the way down here and get the whole set of North Carolina races up so we don't have to keep going back and forth. Okay. Okay, so you can see here in Brunswick County, it's a dashboard basically. Here we go. We've got the Brunswick County Board of Commissioners. It's yellow. This person, Randy Thompson, was invited. He didn't respond to the questionnaire. Mr. Cook was invited, didn't respond. But all these candidates responded. All of them did, and they're shown as green. So we can, so what I figured with, the 11 candidates and 6 responses, we've got about a 54% response rate. It was better in the primary, less in the general. Okay, so we can see this we can look at New Hanover County, just keep going way down here to wherever New Hanover County is. This is the whole state. So yeah, I just went by it. Sorry for there they are. Okay, so here's New Hanover. We've got better response here. You can see all the greens in the New Hanover. I think of all the school board candidates, only one didn't respond. It's an important race. And there's also a ballot measure on here that shows up. Yes for the measure, no against the measure. And you can find out more about that on the ballot. So that's good. That was about, I think, a 70, let's see, figured it out. 72% response rate. Pender, which I won't show you, is the same as Brunswick, just a little over 50. When we go to our North Carolina Senate and House races, here they are. And then I won't go to each district, but it's only 30%. 30% of the candidates responded to our invitation. And the same for the district court judges and district attorneys. For the US Congress, it's only 50%. Only half of the candidates for US House, US Senate, only 3 of those 6 candidates responded. So remember that link I showed you, what can you do? What can you do to help? That link will give you sample tweets and sample emails that you can pressure these folks that didn't respond to answer our questions, because it's such a powerful tool. It's a wonderful tool. And it's good, even when I sent out the emails, which I'll show you in a minute how that works. I said, even if you don't have an opponent, it's nice to answer the questions. Next time you might have an opponent. It gets your information out there. So we'd like your help into encouraging these candidates to respond. So just one more little feature I'm going to show you. This is the Mail Center. So we have these templates that are in here, and I can show you just real quick. There's a whole lot of them. They can't seem to get rid of them, so we just keep adding them. But ours are called Lower Cape Fear, the more recent one. So we're going to look at maybe a reminder. So let's just look at the reminder. So here's the email that would go out. It just says basically, let's see. We recently sent you several emails. Each candidate, I sent 4 emails, and I called them and I followed up with a voicemail. If I could get a hold of them, I talked to them. If I couldn't, I left them a voicemail. So they've had a lot of opportunity to respond. But this is how that worked. You just save this template, because we're really not going to change it right now. But all we would have to do is say, like, let's go back to our list where we go. So Brunswick County. Where's Brunswick County? Oh, I always do this. You have to get to invited. You have to change that. Sorry about that. And you have to go back to, you got to get back to an order here. Okay, now we can go where I want to go. All right, so it's not invited. Okay, invited. Oh, it's still not in ascending order, is it? Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. All right, now let's get down to Brunswick County. Remember, we had these 2 guys that didn't respond here. We can send them a reminder. All you got to do is check this and then send them an email and then figure out which template you want to send, and it goes. And that's how easy it is. So if anybody's interested in being the VOTE411 coordinator, you can see how what a wonderful tool it is, how easy it is. All I had to do with the help of other league members was get their email address, because the whole system works on emails. You don't have their email address, there's nothing that we can do other than send them a written letter, which I didn't do. I think we had all the email addresses except for 1 or 2. I think just 1 of those soil and water guys. So anyway, that link is real important to keep putting pressure on them. What we did find out was that in the primary, more than half of the searches in VOTE411 occurred in the week right before the election. So it's not too late to get these folks to respond. We can still try to say, hey, this is important to us that you answer these questions. And that was true of all 3 of our counties as well as across the state. And then some other information I found was through the state's help. During the primary in Brunswick County, we had over 1,000 new users to this site in the primary. In New Hanover, it was about 500, and in only 65 in Pender. And we don't have much of a presence in Pender County, so that might be somewhat of a reflection. I'm not sure what's going on there, but it's definitely a significant increase from election to election, you can see. And I didn't have this data to share today, but the state's got spreadsheets that show that every election, there's more and more use of VOTE411. So I'm just honored to be a part of this. And I think we've got a short video to share, and then we're going to take some questions. All right. Okay, so we're going to go to share screen. That's whichever screen we want.
I think it's that one. Share. I know, I think we got it.
Leave it.
Are we good? Okay, so yes, so we're gonna share this video. This is what we had mentioned before. We captured this very professional video from the Trusted Election Tour that was held on Monday night. This is Jill Hopman, who is an election attorney specialist, and we thought some of the comments she made were very important for all of us to hear.
I feel like hasn't been mentioned is we tell people to vote all the time, where to vote, when to vote, that they must vote, but we do not explain how to vote or how to properly fill out that ballot often. And just to go back to the Beasley recount, the amount of ballots that could have been saved if signatures were in the right place, if bubbles were filled in legibly, if all of your address information was properly, she probably would have won, quite frankly, if just those ballots alone could have been saved. So when you are helping your friends, your neighbors, when you are voting, make sure that you give all required information, that you sign in all the right places, that your intent is clear on your ballot, because they will, the board of elections will do everything that they can to ensure that every lawful vote counts and voter intent is upheld. But it's your job as a voter to make sure all of that information is conveyed, or there's no point because it won't count anyway. So if you're going to take the time, do it correctly.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like hasn't been
Oops, sorry. Okay, and then we have just to finish up a little video that kind of gets the young people charged up to vote. Okay, yeah, so go to VOTE411. Okay, so Barb and Marilyn and I would like to take any questions that anybody has. I don't know if there's any in the chat. No? Okay, all right, so then we're going to post the recording of this session on our YouTube channel. You'll be able to find more information on our website on how to get the YouTube channel. You can click right from www.lwvlcf.org to this recording, and you can also connect to vote411.org there as well. And so we just want to thank everyone for joining us for the session today. If you have any further questions about the League of Women Voters, please go to our website. Membership is open to everyone. We are a 501c3 organization, and so all donations are tax deductible, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And membership.
Oh, and membership dues are tax deductible as well. So thank you very much for participating today.